Hello, my name is Diane, and I'm an admissions representative with Kansas State University Online. I want to start by thanking everyone for joining us tonight to learn more about our academic advising graduate programs. I'm joined by Associate Professor Dr. Lisa Rubin, Assistant Professor Dr. Craig McGill, and Recruitment and Retention Coordinator Dr. Amy Levine Plattner. They're going to spend roughly the next 30 minutes giving us a presentation about this program and the last 10 to 15 minutes answering questions. Throughout the duration of the presentation, we will be monitoring the chat feature and answering questions as they're being asked. Some of your questions may be saved until the end for Doctors Rubin and McGill to answer. And as you see on your screen right now, we do have that question that we'd like for you to answer. And if you could take a few seconds to locate the chat feature and share where you're from and which program you're interested in pursuing, as we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. I'll give you a minute to do so now. As those chats are coming in, I also wanted to let you know that we will be sharing a recording of this presentation following the webinar. At this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rubin and Dr. McGill.
Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. We are so happy to have you here. I'm Dr. Craig McGill, and I'm an assistant professor in the department, and we're very excited to talk to you today about our graduate programs. So I will start by talking about our graduate certificate program. So this is the first of three programs we'll be talking about tonight. The Academic Advising Graduate Certificate Program was begun in 2003, the Master's in 2008, and then the PhD in Leadership and Academic Advising was begun in 2020, and we are currently now recruiting for our third cohort. So I will begin by talking about the Graduate Certificate in Academic Advising, and here's a picture of our beautiful Anderson Hall in the, I assume morning, but maybe it's at sunset. So this is the curriculum for the Graduate Certificate in Academic Advising. It is 15 graduate credits or 5 classes, and it consists of learning principles, the foundations of academic advising, student development theory, multicultural aspects of academic advising, and trends in career development. And so this is just 5 classes. There's no capstone project or anything. It's once you finish these 5 courses, you have the certificate in academic advising. And this constitutes half of our master's degree, our Master's of Science in Academic Advising. So this is 30 credits or 10 courses. So I mentioned the first 5, which come from the graduate certificate, and then you've got courses in research methods, in interpersonal relations of academic advising, a course in student athletes, and a course in college students with special needs. And then we have you take 1 restricted elective, and so that can come from this list. So it's either history and philosophy of higher education, assessment of academic advising, or current issues in intercollegiate academic or athletics. Sorry about that. And then it is, we have a capstone project that is part of this. I think we've got that in a future slide. If not, I'll talk about it in a minute. So the admission requirements for the Master of Science in Academic Advising is a bachelor's degree with at least a 3.0 GPA in the final 2 years, or approximately the last 60 credits. And even if you don't have a 3.0, you can still apply and potentially be admitted conditionally. And you could take courses and then demonstrate, with a good GPA that you could be admitted. And we accept applications all year round. So we have fall, spring, and summer semesters. And so we encourage you to apply 3 months before the term in which you plan to begin. So the fall semester begins in August, so applying in May. The spring term starts in January, so applying in October. And then the summer starts in May, so you might apply in February. Including in the application is a professional resume or a curriculum vitae. as well as a 1 to 2 page statement of your goals and professional experiences. And in this, we'd like you to include the following information. Talk to us a little bit about your career and professional goals and aspirations, and how this master's program would help you accomplish or achieve those goals. The reason you are seeking the master's in academic advising. We'd like to see evidence of motivation, leadership, and a strong work ethic. This can be in other different areas of your life. It doesn't have to be in academic advising, of course. And if you're an international student, you must include a statement that acknowledges that you will be taking all courses through distance education and will not come to the US for part of the program. Okay, we don't have a slide about the final project. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if we did. So the final project consists of one of 3 options. You can choose the case study option, in which you review case studies and then respond to the case studies using theory or other literature from the coursework that you've taken. The second option is an assessment of an academic advising program. And then the third option is something a little bit more open. So if there's something that you want to do that doesn't fit neatly within one of the previous 2 options, you can present that to us, and we are happy to work with you around that. And we can talk more about that later if there's interest. But for right now, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Lisa Rubin to talk about our PhD program.
Thank you, Dr. McGill, and welcome everybody. It's great to have all of you here. So our PhD in Leadership and Academic Advising, as he said, was started in 2020. And this prepares people for roles in leadership, research, and teaching focused on academic advising situated within higher education. This degree program is a minimum of 90 hours post-baccalaureate, which does mean that 30 credits of your master's will count towards that. And I can talk about that more in a little bit. And this is a program under counseling and student development. So some key aspects to this program: it is a cohort model, which means you would enter with a group of students with you that would take classes together and do professional development activities and special activities just for that cohort throughout the program. Our courses are offered through K-State Online with occasional synchronous sessions. So we try to keep a lot of it asynchronous, since everybody in this program right now is a full-time working professional. But we do have some times where we meet together, and that does depend, of course, on time zones and places around the country and other countries. So we hope to have people from other countries in all of our programs, and that does then create compromise for what time that we can meet. We also have a 1-week session it's actually the first and third year on campus and the second year virtually for the cohort. So you get to come to K-State, the NACADA Executive Office, and the Research Center. And the first year of the cohort would be the third year of the previous cohort. So you get to engage with other students in that program. You also can meet your faculty in person and each other in person, which is really fun. Our cohort completes a minimum of 2 courses per semester for 7 consecutive semesters, including summer. So coursework is completed summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer. And then students move on to preliminary exam and dissertation. And the preliminary exam is a whole other animal that I can answer questions about, but we don't need to stress about a test right now. So what's really nice about our program is the ongoing professional development. So we have monthly sessions with the cohort and special panels of NACADA leaders, experts in academic advising scholarship, and all sorts of other people and resources that students request that they say will help them in their doctoral journey and their journey to be an advising administrator or be a great leader in advising. We have collaborative opportunities, so students can work with their faculty members and their major professor, which is what we call a doctoral advisor, to do research or some other types of teaching potentially. We have make sure that there's regular interaction between students and online and at conferences, and of course, opportunities for involvement in research with the NACADA Center for Research, which is housed here at K-State. So how to get started: we have a lot of information about admissions on our website through K-State Online, and we can talk about that too. The cohort that we're recruiting for right now begins in summer 2024. This is our third cohort, so we admit every 2 years for this program. A completed application for this cohort is due December 1st, which is coming up in about 5 weeks. So if you're thinking about it at all, you may want to start soon. And so now Dr. McGill, did you have computer sound set up here? Do you need to
I was just like, uh-oh, let's hope this works.
You may just have to quickly unshare and reshare with the computer sound checked
Okay.
if you don't have it already. So
Where do
yeah.
I check to?
When you hit share screen, then there's a little thing on the bottom that says share computer sound.
Got it.
Thank you. So we're going to share a very brief video clip of Christy Lax Walker, who graduated with our master's in academic advising and is now in our second cohort of the PhD program.
For students that are wondering, what's their next step? For me, it took a lot of years to determine that. And I finally figured out, I'm researching careers and I'm doing this and looking into development for students. And this was the answer to what it was. Every time I wanted to know something, I sent an email. And really that was really one of the driving forces as to why I decided to attend, because it was just such, it was really personal and they really cared. I'm the type of person that likes to be in the class with the professor up front, and I actually really feel like I had that experience with the global campus. I know several of my professors and I feel the real connection with them. So the global experience for me has been really almost better than in the classroom because there was so much contact. I feel that it's really been, I've been part of the family. I want to get as much academic advising experience as possible. I really enjoy student development, and that was a big part of our program. So lots of our classes really focus on theory and development. And for me, that was important because it lets you get to the heart of the student. One of the things that I was able to do that I really like is attend the NACADA conference. So I met several of my professors there, really made connections there. On campus, because I was in the program, I was also able to create and work with one of our provosts to actually do an assistantship in academic advising. Halfway through the program, my father passed away. And I needed some time, and he gave me the time that I needed. For some, they might have stopped and taken a break. And because of their care, because he really just allowed me what I needed. And so I didn't stop, I kept going and I finished. And so for me, that said a lot. It said a lot about who they are as just a family, as Kansas State, and how much they care about their students. There can be challenging times. And so just the fact that they made sure that I had everything I needed all the time. I think because of that and their partnership, even with NACADA, really makes it something that students love. And so this distance education at a just a world-renowned university, for me, highly respected. You can't get much better at all.
So I just think the words of Christy really help show that she had a really positive experience as a distance student. She lives in the state of Indiana, and now she's pursuing our distance PhD. So we have the opportunity to learn with her, and she is an academic advisor at her institution and is loving what she does. So I think just a great example. We do have many wonderful students that have done a couple different programs with us, a certificate and a master's, and are working on a PhD. The next slide that Dr. McGill is flipping to is a lot of contact information. So all of us can answer questions about everything, but just so you have all of us, you can email if you have like specific questions about these programs. We have sort of designated faculty for each one. And our department head is Dr. Chrissy Kraft. She kind of handles all the admissions questions for our department. And then Amy, who is with us, our recruitment and retention guru, can answer questions pretty much about everything, including processes on campus and all sorts of other things that come up. She's in the know. So we had a pretty brief presentation because we wanted to focus on your questions. I'm sure you have many. So with that, we are here to take questions and ask away. And I did notice a good number of people introduced themselves who are interested in the certificate program on this call. So Dr. McGill is actually, he's a graduate of our master's program too, which is cool. But I don't know if you want to say anything else about the certificate that you have.
You should do it. It's great. No, but we have students who potentially maybe already have like a graduate degree already, but just want some additional supplemental background in academic advising. So for them, you know, the full master's may not make sense, and so maybe the 5 courses of the certificate just gives them what they want. I will say it's not uncommon for people to start with the certificate and then find that they're really enjoying it and decide, well, I'm already halfway to the master's, might as well conclude it. So was there a more specific question than that, or was that?
Nope. I think, and now we've got a lot of good questions rolling in. So the first
Excellent.
one from Megan about the curriculum. Megan asks, has the curriculum evolved based on the number of high school students during the COVID time who did distance education, and have we addressed that? That's an excellent question. Now, some faculty have update their courses pretty much every semester, so I can't speak to each class, but what Dr. McGill and I are currently working on is a revamp of the curriculum for both the certificate and the master's. So those classes and areas may change in the coming years, and that's a long process. We've already spent 2 years on it, so if you apply in the near future, you will be in the curriculum that we presented. But that's a really good question, Megan. We have a question about internship or fieldwork opportunities. That's a really good question as well. Right now, there's nothing required in the program, but we are definitely looking into having a potential like course credit for an internship or some kind of experience, a learning experience type of setup in the future curriculum. So we definitely encourage people to intern or find opportunities to maybe part-time work at a nearby college if that's available to you. And there are plenty of postings on the CADA's website that may be able to steer you in that direction. I don't know if Amy or Craig, if you have anything you want to add on those things. Okay. So I'm fielding questions both in Q&A and webinar chat. So please bear with me as I'm going to bounce between them so I don't miss anybody. The question is, if I have a master's and I'm interested in a certificate, can I get credit, like transfer credit from your previous degree? So that is a very good question. The answer to that is it depends. So if your master's is within the past 6 years and you have a course that you've taken that would apply to the certificate, or maybe 2, you can share the syllabi with Dr. Kraft when you're applying, or with your professor once you're admitted, and see what credit, if the professor who teaches it here would grant you a transfer equivalency for that. So we have had that done before. And then the next question is, can you apply as a non-degree seeking student, maybe take a class or 2 and then continue? Yes, you can definitely do that. I believe up to 9 credits can be non-degree seeking before you must be enrolled in a program to count the classes towards a degree program or a certificate. So that's a very good question. Thank you, Sophia. All right. If you get the master's, is it seamless to transition to the PhD? It definitely means you covered all the requirements that we call co-requisites for the program. So I'd say it would be seamless. It's just there's still a competitive application process. So hopefully that answers your question, Amanda. Thank you for that question. All right, what is our placement rate for graduates not working currently in education? That's a very good question, Joanne, and we don't have placement rate information right now. Our career services office actually does collect information from our graduating students, but they don't parse it out based on where people, if they're working during the program. So I don't have that information, but we might try to get the information about where people go from the Career Center. Maybe we can share that with you. All right, Craig, I'm going to give you this one. Can you obtain both the certificate and the master's?
Yeah, I saw that from Nicholas, and I met a bit ago. And yes, absolutely, that's pretty common. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was supposed to email me that.
Oh, okay. So we've kind of have it in both directions. We've had people start with a certificate and then earn it and decide to apply for the master's, or we have people apply for the master's and then decide to add the certificate and just do those 5 courses first, and that's also fine. For the master's program, our course is completely asynchronous. Juliana, yes. At this time, all courses are asynchronous. We have students from all over the world, so getting everybody to meet would be pretty difficult. So you do have deadlines, but you can do those like weekly or bi-weekly activities at your pace. So hopefully that reassures you. And for Francisco, what is the tuition fee? So for distance education, it's one rate for in-state or out-of-state, and it's actually less than out-of-state tuition. And Diane maybe can correct me, but I believe it's about 500 per credit hour for graduate students. Each class is 3 credits in our program, so it's approximately $1,500 a class. So it's pretty reasonable for an online program. And again, it'd be less than coming here out of state, which I think is a good bonus. All right.
That's correct, Dr. Rubin.
Okay, Allison asked a great question. Are these courses in the certificate program primarily applicable to undergraduates, or are they also applicable to graduate students?
I would say it's kind of a mix. Although much of the primary role advisors are situated in undergraduate units, I think it's becoming more common for us to have primary role advisors who are advising graduate students. So at least in my classes, I don't really make a distinction between them because that so much of that is context dependent. But we would talk about lots of, I'm thinking of my multicultural issues and academic advising course. So although we wouldn't focus on graduate students versus undergraduate students in that course, we would discuss a variety of students and their different needs. So hopefully that answers that.
Thank you. Yes. And from Lori, does this program provide opportunities for networking? So we do try, obviously Zoom gets tiring after all these years, but we will offer at least once a semester a gathering of certificate and master's students to connect with each other. We usually will answer some questions like these about the program, and then the faculty will go away and let the students do icebreakers or have conversations so they can build community. There's also a lot of different people taking every class that you're in. So you will sometimes be in a group project. You might have discussions with different people. And so those are some of the distance ways. Now, if you go to the NACADA conference, which we'd love to see you at the annual conference, that conference has a K-State reception where we invite all of our current students to come meet each other and our faculty. And we just had that 3 weeks ago, and it was very nice to meet some people I only knew behind a screen, sometimes without their picture and just the words. So that's it's very nice. All right, great questions, y'all. So I'm still going in order, so hopefully no one feels like I've missed them yet. So Akeem asked, for the master's program, are there office hours for those who might need extra help? So the answer is yes. All faculty and Amy and anyone else in our department is always here to help. Because students are working and on different time zones, it's probably just by appointment only for most faculty. Some people may have set hours where they sit on Zoom for 3. It doesn't usually work well. So you would just make an appointment with your professor or your advisor when you need to meet with them. And usually everyone can find a time that works. What areas of academic and educational research are there? That's a really good question, Sage. So all the faculty are doing various research projects. We do involve students who are interested, and then Dr. Troxel, who runs the NACADA Center for Research, has many different projects, and then NACADA also offers research grants, which I think Dr. McGill just got one. Congratulations. So we do provide opportunities to get involved in research. More at the doctoral level, it gets brought up. And so students in the doctoral program will spend time that kind of orientation week in the first cohort summer, getting to know the faculty in their research areas. A lot of the time, the classes faculty teach might relate to their research. So you might see even some of your professors' articles or books used in the classes because many of us are experts in the field, and that's why we're doing this, because we love it. So if you have specific questions, Dave, definitely let us know. All right, Joseph already has a master's in psychology and wants to get into advising. Can you transfer credit into the student affairs and higher ed PhD program, which we hadn't talked about? So if you have, and if you take some classes for the certificate, it's sort of one of those, it depends if your committee will count those classes towards part of the PhD, like the cognate area. So that's something you can ask Dr. Kraft, our department head. Definitely email her that question. That's a good question. All right, if you're an international student, is there any help with the job market or getting field experience? So that's a very good question for master's students. So we do help, like all the faculty are willing to help look at career documents. I used to be a career counselor, so I always offer that to my students, giving you tips on interviewing. But while I know Dr. McGill is very interested in having a course on comparative advising and how it works in different countries, we're not definitely the experts in all countries, though we do have contacts in other countries that have academic advising associations, like the UK and the Netherlands, which have really big organizations that are, they've networked with us and with NACADA. But we definitely will try to do our best to help people find work in the field that they are pursuing, studying, and love. That is definitely our goal, that you end up getting to do what you love in academic advising. So, okay, financial aid, is there financial aid available? So there is financial aid available for grad students, and there are distance student scholarships offered by K-State Global Campus every semester for $1,000. And you can apply, if you're applying for spring now, you can apply for those by November 1st. I checked that today. So there's definitely some funding available. And then you can look at opportunities, of course, through other outside organizations, but K-State Online does offer distance student scholarships. And Diane also answered some of that in the chat. Thank you, Diane. Completion rate for the master's program. So Amy, I don't know if you have that information. I think it's
not off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's pretty high because we do allow people to go at their own pace. One class at a time is okay. You don't have to be fully enrolled, in 9 credits or 6 credits. You can also take a break. Our student records stay active for 2 years. So, during COVID, if we have a lot of K-12 educators in our program and they took a break to teach from their house and help their own children in school and that sort of thing. So we definitely don't say this is not a race, so you don't have to do everything very quickly or be full-time. So we do have that information somewhere, Francisco. So it's a good question, but typically our students see it all the way through. It's only 30 credits. It's a pretty concise master's program with plus the final project. So Lori, advising jobs often list masters in higher ed, student affairs, or counseling. Which field is most helpful for someone trying to switch into academic advising? I'm not exactly sure I understand the question, but academic advising is pretty closely tied to those areas. So if you already have a master's in one of those areas, you probably don't need to get our master's. Maybe the certificate would be beneficial enough, or maybe taking foundations class and student development theory class and getting your feet wet as a non-degree seeking student to see if it's relevant to your goals. But there are so few academic advising programs out there, so you may not always see those words on a job posting. Would you need to reapply for the distance scholarship each semester? From what I understand, yes, they're offered every semester, and it is competitive by college. And I think the College of Ed has a a set number that they offer each semester. Recommendation letters, that is, from my understanding, only required for the doctoral program. So if you're applying for a certificate or a master's, I don't believe you need letters of recommendation as long as you meet the GPA requirements and submit the statement for the master's. So that's a good question, Lori. PhD in non-counseling related field. Okay. So having a PhD in a different field could mean you could be an advisor in that discipline. So I wouldn't say you need to stress about not having an advising or student affairs degree if you're interested in working with, I'm just going to make up some things, I don't know your background, but if you studied biology, you could be a biology advisor without getting an advising degree because you have the expertise in the curriculum and the subject and possibly jobs in that field. So that's something that I've seen a lot of our students and some colleagues at K-State who are advisors are advising in fields where they have that undergraduate degree or master's degree in that discipline. I don't know if you have anything to add.
It's not uncommon though to add to the point I said in the text, to have people who have, a terminal degree. Dr. Carroll had a surgeon. I think we've had vets, we've had nurses with the terminal doctoral degree. Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of just depends. Like it's hard to predict what the search committee will want to see. But just to give a word for our graduate certificate program, it does kind of show that you're interested in the field and that you're devoted to, dedicated to it. So it's, it might be something to consider, but I wouldn't think you'd need a whole nother graduate degree.
Sage asked, do you regularly see students create community among their classmates on their own? And I would say yes. The first thing I do in every class the first week is introduce yourself, talk about your career goals, say something fun about you or hobby and that kind of thing. And most people start to say, oh, great to see you in another class. And then there's like backstories that I don't know because they did something, maybe they did a group project in Dr. McGill's class and I don't do group projects typically. So I'll see that. But what I do see is a lot of respect that people have for each other and the different backgrounds they have. We have everyone from a 22-year-old fresh out of college to a grandma of 10, and everything in between. So that's what I love about the program is learning from the students in my classes and seeing all the different backgrounds that they have, help each other learn and see things in a different lens. So I think that's the beauty of the programs. Great question. These are excellent questions. We're still here for you. We have plenty of time, so feel free to ask anything. You've got all your questions answered now and you forget something later, you can definitely email us.
Did we cover the question about letters of recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
All right, so Sam has asked, for the certificate program, what is the typical amount of hours per week required to study? I guess that depends on how many classes you're enrolled in. So that's probably the first thing I'll say. If you're doing one class at a time, then you'd be enrolled in 3 credit hours. And I think is the standard 3 hours, 3 times the credit hours, or what is it?
So I'll just give my response. It depends on whether it's in a fall/spring semester in which courses are 16 weeks or in the summer when they're probably 8, but they might be 4 or 6 as well. What I tell my students is during the 16-week semester to, and of course, this depends on a lot of different things, but just a baseline, I would say 10 to 15 hours per class. So if you're in 2 classes, plan 20 to 30 hours a week on that.
I'm going to copy and paste the email addresses into the chat for Joanne and everyone who would like that, if it lets me. There we go. Okay. If I have a double major in child development and psychology, is a certificate good for now? I guess that's more of a reflective question for you, Mary. I'm not sure. Depends on what your goals are and what you are hoping to learn right now.
And if those are undergraduate degrees versus a graduate degree, that would be another consideration.
What kind of coursework is in the master's program? Big projects or smaller assignments? A little bit of everything, Nicholas. I think you'll find most faculty do papers and projects. I think a few have exams. I'm not one of those people. I have test anxiety. So I like people to write. We also have lots of discussions because of the asynchronous format. It's one way to engage in conversation asynchronously. But I think you will find most assignments are spaced out where you're given a lot of notice on final or big papers and projects and can spend lots of time on them. Most people provide grading rubrics in advance. All the things we want you to be successful, I guess, is the main point. So you should be set up for success and have projects that are applicable to your advising practice and theoretical knowledge. It's a good question. Is it common for students in the certificate program to take one course at a time or more?
I would say both and. I've seen students do one at a time for 5 semesters, and I've seen students do it, 3 in one semester and 2 in another. So it really kind of depends on what other life responsibilities you have. If you're working full time, if you're raising children, if you're a caretaker for family, all of those things play a role into how much you're going to take on.
All right. Okay. Is there ageism in the field? Well, I hope there wouldn't be. I can't say that I can speak for all hiring managers in universities and colleges, but I think that like knowledge and passion are valued in education. So I would hope that you would be qualified to get a job regardless of your age. So
it's illegal, but unfortunately we know that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So.
All right. I think Kirsten and Akeem are asking somewhat related questions. Maybe I'm mistaking it, but is it possible to take 5 courses consecutively without a semester in between? And is there a limit of courses you can take each semester? So I think these might be related. I might be interpreting them wrong, but so you can be continuously enrolled until you finish, however that looks. I'll say that first. You don't have to be enrolled in the summer if you were, that's an option because some people don't like accelerated coursework, as Dr. McGill explained, how that would be kind of double the time or double the amount of information half the time. Then in terms of course limit, a full-time student with no job is a 9 credit hour enrolled student, which is 3 classes. If you are working part-time at the university in a graduate assistantship and 20 hours a week, then we consider you full-time with 6 credits, or it's considered more than half-time, but you qualify for financial aid. And so if you're working full-time, taking 3 credits is already a lot of effort, I suppose. So that's one of those things that it depends on how you manage your time, how much you're working, what your other family and life responsibilities are. Rarely, I have seen students take more than 3 classes in one semester. Very, very rarely, I think once I have seen someone take 5 classes in a semester. But I would say to be successful, 3 is probably the max I would recommend, especially if you are doing any sort of work on the side or full-time, probably 3 to 6 credits is enough. That's a good question. Hopefully I addressed both of you correctly. So if I didn't, please clarify in the chat. Is there a required sequence for the classes? So the answer to that, Lori, is no. For both certificate and master's students, you can go in any order. We always recommend Foundations of Academic Advising to be the first class. It is more broad, a kind of a bigger overview of the field. And so after that, classes might get a little bit more specific. Thus, going out of order might seem a little weird. So foundations always we recommend first. I encourage students to take in the master's program and in the certificate, the student development theory early on. I think this is something that will help people in their practice in any area of education that they're in, or even if you're like a coach. And I know Dr. McGill has some more comments on that.
I just one more recommendation is that you take research methods for the master's early on, because one of our main goals in that class is for you to become a more competent consumer of research literature. So although Lori, in your case, it might depend on what your research experience has been. But you know, some students are scared of that class and so they put it off, but we do everything we can to make it not scary, to make it fun even. So yeah, I would add that to the list as well. And it's also a prerequisite. It's the only prereq we have in the program, but it is a prerequisite for one of the options for the elective, and that's assessment of academic advising.
Thank you for that. Nicholas asked, are all 10 classes for the master's offered each semester? It's very close. So of the required courses, of which there are 9, I believe 8 of them are offered every semester now as of this summer coming up, because I learned from Amy, we just added multicultural in the summer. The only class of the 9 required that is not every semester is the interpersonal relations and academic advising course, which is offered in summer and fall. And then the electives are offered at different semesters. So history and philosophy of higher education is a fall class, assessment of academic advising is a spring course, and current issues in intercollegiate athletics is in spring or summer, I should say spring and summer. So there's something at all times in terms of electives, and then most of the time. So we don't really have an issue. If you need a class, it's probably going to be available. We just ask that you plan not to take interpersonal in the spring when it's not there, but otherwise you should be able to take the classes at your pace and not ever get behind because something's not available for you. So that's a really good question. Sage asked about GA positions or other work in the department or on campus for those who live near K-State. And have we had students that have worked on campus while taking classes? So the answer is yes. We do have GA opportunities both in our department and on campus that students on our program do qualify for as a grad student who lives nearby. So there is a student affairs GA website that Dr. Kraft maintains. So you can definitely email her and she can send you that link. And those get updated randomly throughout the year, but leading near a semester before the fall would be a good time to look to see what's available, as those usually are a fall through spring type of position. And those GAs, depending on how they're classified, may offer a stipend and or tuition assistance. So that's something to look for. And then we have had students do that as well. Depending on the situation, I don't have specifics here, but we've had a student in the doctoral program teach classes for the master's program and earn a scholarship towards their tuition in the doctoral program. So that's something that has come up in the past as well. So that's definitely worth investigating. Great question.
I found the link. I was looking for my favorites and I finally figured out how to do it. So there, because of the point of the semester we're in, there's not any opportunities listed, but this page is where they will be listed when they are.
Thank you so much. And Sage, in the past, NACADA had GAs. They haven't had GAs for a little bit, but you never know. If you butter up Dr. Troxel, she has had GAs for the NACADA Research Center in the past, and maybe she has an opening because I don't think she has one currently. So that's a possibility too. Their headquarters are not too far from us, and in a couple of years they'll be moving into our building too, so that'll be nice. Great questions, everyone. I like how much thought you've put into this. It is a big decision to do any school, so we definitely appreciate that. Dominique's asking about application deadline for spring. So that would be certificate and master's for spring 2024. I would say best bet is to get stuff in before mid-November. Is that fair, Amy? Because we do take time to make sure we have all the documents, faculty make a decision and notify you before winter break, hopefully, or right into January, so you can get prepared to start graduate education. So good question. And a reminder, the doctoral program in leadership and academic advising, that deadline is December 1st, 2023 for a May 2024 start. So that one does require letters of recommendation and a writing sample and a statement of purpose. So that is a lot of homework for you. If you're interested, maybe get on that soon. I know that someone in the earlier mentioned the Student Affairs and Higher Education PhD program. That program is on a rolling basis. It's not a cohort. So if you're interested at all in that PhD program, you can take one class at a time. You don't have to do the 2 classes that the cohort does. And that one has admissions in every semester as well. So if you're looking for a PhD program, that's another option with a similar topic and field as academic advising. We've got a little bit more time to answer a few more questions. All right, so question again about the academic advising master's courses being asynchronous. So the answer is yes, they are all asynchronous. And the difference, I guess, between it's not completely self-paced. There are deadlines in the classes for different activities and assignments, but the time between 1 or 2 weeks between those is kind of up to the student to meet those deadlines. So if you're working 8 to 5 your time and you can only do stuff at night, that's when you would work on it, for example. All right, Dr. McGill, do you want to talk about the final project a little more?
I'm trying to think what I can add to it. I would say probably most of our students go for the case study option. And so each semester there's new case studies that are written for students. And do they do 3 or 4?
3.
3. One from student athletics and then one from multicultural.
So there's 3 on advising generally, unless someone took the athletic elective, and then they would do 1 athletic and 2 general advising.
Right, one comes from the elective, yeah. So yeah, you're given these case studies and then you're asked to respond. So the case studies are like student scenarios, so Joe was a student athlete at, Division I, whatever. And so you're asked to craft a response using the literature and theories you've learned throughout your coursework for how you would advise Joe in this case, the student in this scenario. So does that help? The other 2, I guess, were proposing a assessment plan for academic advising for a particular, or not for a particular college. It could be a hypothetical one. So I actually had a student last semester who did that. And then the third one option is really open. The student decided ultimately not to do it, but I was really excited. They wanted to do a podcast, and I thought that was just super creative and really fun. So it also consists of your academic advising philosophy, and you will most likely write a first draft of this when you take foundations of academic advising. I think everybody who teaches that includes that as an assignment. And so you'll get feedback from, peers, maybe your instructor. And and then you'll kind of put it together in a nice packaging, explaining, the various different things that are in your portfolio. So there's those three options. Amy, I don't know if you want to add anything, or Lisa.
I think you covered it. Okay, so we got, is it common for master's students to get an advising position after a year of courses? I want to start after a couple of semesters in the program. And it is an MS, it's a Master of Science, not a Master of Arts. I'll just clarify that. It's not an MA. We have had students get jobs along the way. One of my advisees who's actually graduating this semester got a position as a remote advisor last semester. So she's been working from home. She's a military spouse here in the area and works for an online institution and hasn't completed a degree yet, but has already gotten that job. So that's definitely possible. I'd say a lot of people really respect our program, and NACADA and those connections do help people get roles along the way. And it's definitely possible, Dominique.
Well, and as soon as you're admitted to either the certificate or the master's, it is perfectly fine to list that on your resume, as long as you indicate, specifics about, where you are in the process. And so that can be helpful, if they see like, wow, they've got the Master in Science and Academic Advising is underway. That can be helpful.
Right. That's kind of some like deeper questions asked, and I'm not sure if we have time for both of them, but I'll ask Dr. McGill, why did you pursue academic advising as a career?
Oh, I don't know if I have time to tell the whole story, but I'll try and make it short. I came to college with just lots of different interests, and I was fascinated by everything. So I wanted to study English and I wanted to study music. I had an advisor in English and I had an advisor in music. And this is not I'm not generalizing about any particular type of advisor, but I had a faculty member who was an advisor who did not want to be an advisor. And it was very clear that she was there because she had to be. And the advisor in English introduced me to NACADA. And so I always say that both of those advisors inspired me equally to go into academic advising. One, because of like the great career it could be, and one, because I wanted to be a better advisor than she was. So that's the short version.
Thank you so much. For me, I was a student worker in the admissions office in college and a tour guide. So I love talking to prospective students about going to college. And then I wanted to do something I got my master's in sport management. I want to do something with students and sports. I ended up as an athletic advisor and fell in love with that field. And now I teach and research about it. So I also get to be a faculty advisor. Of course, I love doing that here at K-State. And a lot of students in our program are actually grad student athletes and coaches. So you might encounter some of them in your classes. And I really enjoy working with those populations as well. Is it harder to get an entry-level advising job if you already have a PhD? I would say it's probably hard to get an entry-level job for anyone who has grad education and has experience. I mean, I've coached a lot of older adults with resumes, and I think a lot of it is how you craft your background on documents so that leads to getting an interview without necessarily, like an example, instead of saying I have over 25 years of experience in X, over 10, and it's not a lie, right? So there's ways to work with what you have, and I have like functional resume sample I'll share with students, and how to craft a cover letter and those sort of things, so we can help students with that.
I was just going to add to that, just also talking about what led you to academic advising, so you can acknowledge that you have this whole career in another area, that this is a very intentional choice you're making, so that people don't wonder, like, do they really know what they're in for? Do they know that this is, whatever? So.
All right, so Lori's I'm going to take this as our final question for the night before we wrap up. Do we provide help with preparing for the job market and interviews? So the answer is yes. Again, we want you to be successful. So we're going to provide that information and provide tips and practice and all that stuff. We also, if you go to the NACADA conference, we're happy to introduce you to people from all over the world that we know. I mean, we are pretty well connected between all the faculty members, and Dr. McGill is like highly known around the world for academic advising. That's why we hired him to be the first ever academic advising professor in the world. So, I mean, we really want to connect our students with opportunities and see you succeed. And right now, for example, I'm teaching the Trends in Career Development course, and I've approached it in a way where like half of it is professional and career development for the people in the class, and the other half is how to help students with that. So you're sort of getting a little bit of your own career development while you're figuring out how you can help advise students with career development. So I think that's a big part of how we approach the programs, and we do hope that you feel confident when you are in them, and then as you are preparing to graduate or finish the certificate with pursuing your next steps. So I remind you to please contact any of us if you have any questions. Let me see if I can repaste our emails again. Yep, looks like that worked. So again, you don't have to write only Dr. McGill about the certificate or something. Like, all of us can answer questions about everything. So don't worry if you just want to talk to Dr. Troxel because you haven't met her, you can email her. We don't mind. But all of us can answer the questions about all 3 programs and anything else about K-State that you have questions about. So feel free to pick somebody that has an easy email to send or whatever, and we'll answer more questions if they weren't answered. And as Diane mentioned, you will get a copy of this recording after it's processed, so you can refer back to it if you need to as well. Any last words from Diane, Amy, Dr. McGill?
Just thank you all for coming. What an engaging session. We appreciate your interest and your wonderful questions, and look forward to hearing from you and having you be here with us.
Yes, echoing what Dr. McGill said. Thank you, Dr. Rubin and Dr. McGill, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you everyone for joining us here tonight. If you are ready to apply, please visit our website at online.ksu.edu and select how to apply for detailed instructions. As a reminder, everyone who has registered for this webinar will be receiving a recording via email as soon as it's available. And if you have any additional questions that we didn't cover tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out. We also want to be sure and let everyone know that we do have application fee waivers available to those who attended this live webinar and are applying for the master's degree for the upcoming spring semester. So feel free to reach out to us at online@ksu.edu when you are ready to apply, and we will be happy to provide you with a code. Lastly, we are doing a drawing for a one-time $1,500 scholarship for new students who enroll by December 1st, and we do have about 50 of these scholarships to award. So again, thanks everyone for joining us here tonight, and have a great evening.